Okay, guys. So we're back talking about Socrates and Plato and all of this stuff. So let's continue. Two more videos today, and we will get ourselves to the end of this thing. As for today, anyway. By the way, we're doing pretty good. We're on page 18. We just got to get to like 22 or something. We're gonna finish this whole thing. 24. Um, Socrates talks about he's talking about the difference between the people who sort of just say whatever they want to say to convince people to agree with them, and then the people who are in search for the truth. Um, Phaedrus says, yes, they are royal men, but their art is not the same with the art of those whom you call, and rightly in my opinion, dialecticians. Still, we are in the dark about rhetoric. Rhetoric is, again, just like fancy speaking to do whatever you want to do, but dialecticians are the ones who are Socrates' team, who's supposed to be interested in the truth. What do you mean, says Socrates? The remains of it, if there be anything remaining which can be brought under the rules of art, must be a fine thing, and at any rate is not to be despised by you and me. But how much is left? So Socrates is saying, he's kind of joking around, and he's like, do I fully understand all of this kind of philosophy, the rhetoric and speech making? And the joke is, this is Socrates is saying, well, Phaedrus, maybe you can explain to me how all of these fancy speech making classes go. And the joke is that Socrates wants it to be fancier than it is. He wants the speech making to be after the truth. And Phaedrus is like, well, that's not really what they do. They just try to convince people to agree with them. And so Socrates is like, oh, well, isn't there any, there must be more to it. And there isn't. It's just, tricking people into agreeing with you. Socrates, how much is left? And Phaedrus says, well, there's a great deal surely to be found in books of rhetoric, meaning like there's like textbooks where you can learn how to do this. Socrates says, yes, thank you for reminding me. There is the exordium, showing how the speech should begin, if I remember rightly. That is what you mean, the niceties of the art? Niceties there means like the details. Exordium is a fancy word for introduction. So meaning, and we learn this in school, right? Teachers will tell you how to write the introduction to your paper. And Socrates says, well, that's the kind of thing you could learn from a speech writing class. The joke here, though, is that, of course, his whole point is that they tell you what's a good way to do like, you ever had your teachers saying you should start the introduction with a hook, that you should put something interesting in your first paragraph to get the reader's attention? That's the kind of thing Socrates says rhetoric teachers teach you, right? They teach you how to hook the audience. But they don't tell you how to tell the truth. They just tell you how to get people interested, and that is a different thing. So we talk the niceties of the art. Phaedrus says yes. There then follows the statement of facts, and upon that witnesses. Thirdly, proofs. Fourthly, probabilities are to come. That means things that are believable. The great Byzantine word maker also speaks, if I am not mistaken, of confirmation and further confirmation, meaning evidence. You give a lot of evidence. You mean the excellent Theodorus. So they're basically talking about lists. It's the same thing you would learn in speech class or even in this class. That you have an introduction, you have a hook, you get the reader's attention, you give quotes, you discuss the quotes, you look up research, you put the research in your paper. So these are all the things that you learn about how to write a paper. But this isn't the same thing as the quest after truth, because of course you can use all of these to deceive people, and that's what Socrates doesn't like about this school of Lysias and his rhetoric, because Socrates is interested in philosophy, which is the search after truth. And Socrates, they're talking about this famous guy that does this, and he says this kind of speeches. Yes, and he tells how refutation or further refutation is to be managed, whether in accusation or defense. I ought also to mention the illustrator, and he just starts listing off people here. This guy who invented insinuations and indirect praises, and also indirect censures, which according to some he put into verse to help the memory. But shall I to dumb forgetfulness confine Tisias and Gorgias, who are not ignorant that probability is superior to truth, who by force of argument make the little appear great, and the great little, disguise the new in old fashions and the old in new fashions, and has discovered forms for everything, either short or going on to infinity. I remember Prodicus laughing when I told him of this. He said that he had himself discovered the true rule of art, which was neither to be long nor short, but of a convenient length. I realize that's a lot, and the names of the people are not important. You could look them up in Wikipedia if you wanted to find out who they were. It's not super important. The point, Socrates is joking and saying, well, look at all these wonderful things these people have come up with. And then he lists off, well, this guy invented this way to do a speech, and this guy invented this way to do a speech, and this guy invented this way to do a speech. But the joke here is that what these guys have invented is essentially bullshit. So Tisius and Gorgias, right? It doesn't matter who these guys are. They're people who do speeches in ancient Greece. Um, they argue that probability is superior to truth. Probability is superior to truth. This means that if you want to get somebody to believe you, just tell them something that sounds true, meaning it sounds realistic. But have you ever had something happen to you that was so crazy or so unusual or so rare that you were like, that when you told people they didn't believe you, they were like, no, that's like a coincidence. I'm sure you guys have all experienced some crazy coincidence, right? Where you were talking about somebody and then boom, they were right there. That's so unlikely that that would ever happen. But you guys know it happens. You can be talking about somebody and you just bump into them in the street, some crazy coincidence. These speech makers, now that's true. Like the coincidence that you were talking about somebody and then you bumped into them on the street like 1 minute later, that may have happened to you. It's true, but it's not believable. It's not, the probabilities suggest that's not true. And so what the speech makers tell you is don't put that in your speech. But you go, but it's true, it really happened. And they go, no, 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 don't say that. If you say that, people aren't going to believe you. They think you're making it up for the speech. And you go, no, 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 but it really happened. Doesn't matter. It doesn't sound true. And Socrates' enemies, like Lysias and all these guys that he lists doing rhetoric, they don't put in the speech what's actually true. Because sometimes the real world can be crazy. They just put what sounds true. And so Socrates just gives a bunch of examples of that kind of trickery. Um, uh, yeah, okay, cool. All right. So I'm sure you guys have seen this kind of thing in like Law and Order stuff and legal shows, where somebody will commit a crime, um, and they have an excuse, but nobody believes them because it's so unlikely, it's so unusual, and so they end up. Sometimes they'll have to lie to the jury. To give them a fake reason, but a believable one about why they're innocent, because the real reason they're innocent is too crazy to be believed. Um, yeah, okay. Actually, and I'll say this too. I'll say this too. A lot of times when you go to the doctor's office, um, you tell them your symptoms, right, and they give you medicine. Um, there are two different ways to kind of do medicine. One way is that you can get an official diagnosis for something, right? So let's say you're ill with something. Your doctor might take a little like blood, or he might take saliva or something from your cheek and send it off to a laboratory. And then the laboratory will say, well, this person definitely has this disorder, and so here's how to treat it. But if you've ever been in the doctor's office before, they usually don't do that. Usually, what they do is you tell them the symptoms, and they go, you know what, I bet it is, and then they give you medicine based off of that. It's a guess. It's not a random guess, it's an expert guess, but still, it's about probability. They're giving you medicine because of what you probably have, but they don't test for they don't always test for sure to make sure you actually have the thing. They just go, well, it's probably this. It sounds like it's that, and then they give you the medicine. So Socrates is very worried about people who do what is believable, what's likely, what's probable, because he's interested in the truth. And the truth isn't always believable or likely or probable, but it is true. And so Socrates, and he has other examples of these kinds of verbal tricks that people do. He says here that one of these guys, by force of argument, can make the little appear great and the great little. So this is just a simple thing where they can make something minor seem like a really big deal. They can make a really big deal seem like something minor. These are the kinds of tricks that you use to cover up the truth. I'm sure you have friends of yours. I mean, I'm sure you know people who will make a big deal out of something minor, right? You ever gotten in a fight with somebody over some minor, like your roommate, you have to do some minor, you leave a pencil out on the wrong table and they just like flip out. They're taking something small and making it into a big deal. And I'm sure you have people who, when something is a big deal, they tell you it's not a big deal. For example, in New York City, a lot of people, coronavirus is a big deal, and a lot of people are like, nah, it's not that bad, it's fine, I'm going to go out anyway. And they go out to the beach and they go out to the park and they hang out with their friends and they get other people sick because they're taking something that's a big deal, and they're arguing, well, it's really not that big a deal. You know, the flu kills more people than coronavirus, and they say these things to try to make it. It is true that the flu kills more people than coronavirus, but that's the issue here. Is this is a bigger issue. I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be talking about medicine. What the hell do I know? But the point is that sometimes people will take something small and make it into a big deal, or they'll take something big and tell you it's not that big a deal. These are both things people will do to trick you, because what you have to do is find out, is it a big deal or not? Find out the truth. Socrates wants you hunting for the truth. That is the end of this video. One more to go.